Public health officials urge Americans to follow the science by shutting down any debate. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, chief advisor to the president, and purveyor of sweet treats baked in trees. He's been the face of American public health policy since COVID first struck. To some, he's a hero. To critics, he's a dictator. And to diabetics, he's a cruel temptress. But Fauci would probably just say he's Mr. Science, in that attacks on me are attacks on science. And just like actual science, Dr. Fauci has been constantly shifting. Back in January 2020, he said the coronavirus wasn't something the American public needed to worry about. Just like how I said back in 2016 that K-pop wasn't something the American public needed to worry about. How wrong we both were. Of course, Fauci's perspective on the virus evolved as more information came out. But change seems to be a constant thing that has defined Fauci. Fauci defended his flip-flop on masks by saying something has changed, and what has changed is the virus. The CDC hasn't changed. The CDC hasn't really flip-flopped at all. This is like when J-Lo sang a song about still being Jenny from the block. Yes, you did change. Stop lying and own up to it. Fauci's defenders say that he isn't perfect, but he's been truthful, careful, and responsive to data. His accuracy percentage is better than just about anyone's. And according to a recent Gallup poll, his approval rating is 52%. 52%? Baby Shark has a higher approval rating than that. Maybe because while it repeats the same thing over and over, Baby Shark doesn't contradict itself. But sometimes it looks like politics are shaping Fauci's perspective more than the scientific method. Early into the pandemic, Dr. Fauci said 60 to 70% of the population needed to be immune to the virus in order to achieve herd immunity. But he admitted to slowly moving the goalposts, not based on changes in science, but based on how easy it would be to get the public to accept vaccines. He said, when polls said only about half of all Americans would take a vaccine, I was saying herd immunity would take 70 to 75%. Then, when newer surveys said 60% or more would take it, I thought, I can nudge this up a bit. So I went to 80, 85. You got greedy, Fauci. This is like trying to convince your 2-year-old to try broccoli. Then, when you see he's more willing to try it than you initially thought, you also try to get him to change the oil in your truck. And now, as the Omicron COVID variant spreads, Fauci is literally going to change the definition of the word vaccinated, saying it's a matter of when, not if. If he's going to change the definition of a word, I prefer he change the word literally to literally mean literally, not figuratively. They're literally not the same thing. And it's figuratively driving me insane. Fauci has also flip-flopped on the idea that the coronavirus could have come from a Wuhan lab. He went from initially dismissing it to saying, okay, maybe the lab leak theory is credible. That was such a big about-face, he literally almost flip-flopped. But Dr. Fauci has been doing more than just shifting his stances. He's actively stifling dissenting viewpoints. And we know that because of newly released emails between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Francis Collins, the former director of the National Institutes of Health. I'll show you how after the break. Welcome back. When it comes to COVID policy, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins, two of the most influential health officials in the U.S., say they are simply following the science. But what does following the science mean? Does science have an Instagram account and they're liking and leaving comments on it? You might have learned in high school that science means constantly questioning the world around you. But you'd be wrong. Because Fauci and Collins' way of following the science means stifling views from other scientists they don't agree with. Back in October 2020, thousands of infectious disease epidemiologists and public health scientists worldwide signed on to the Great Barrington Declaration. It's a statement written by professors from Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. These scientists came out against continued government lockdowns to combat the virus, saying lockdowns were especially bad for children, the working class, and the developing world. Instead, the declaration favors focused protection for people at high risk like the elderly and those with medical conditions, while at the same time keeping public places like schools and workplaces open. That seems reasonable, at least more reasonable than the approach in Texas, which was basically, can we shoot the virus? That's one way of fighting COVID with shots. Both Fauci and Collins shot down the Great Barrington Declaration. We know this because of emails obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request from the American Institute for Economic Research, a libertarian think tank that supported the Great Barrington Declaration. According to those emails, Collins called the three authors fringe epidemiologists and emailed Fauci in October 2020 saying that there needs to be a quick and devastating published takedown of the Great Barrington Declaration's premises. Is it underway? Is it just me, or does this coordinated attack on someone else's reputation sound like something straight out of Mean Girls? Anthony, stop trying to make the new definition of vaccinated happen. It's not going to happen. Fauci responded with a link to a piece from July 2020 by Wired. That piece argued that when you look at the evidence, any so-called divide starts to evaporate, especially since there is little about the Great Barrington Declaration that feels convincingly scientific. Both Fauci and Collins wanted the public to think the scientific community unanimously agreed with mass lockdowns. Guess we're also going to have to change the definition of unanimously now, too. So Collins told the Washington Post last year that the Great Barrington Declaration is a fringe component of epidemiology. This is not mainstream science, it's dangerous. Mainstream science? Like mainstream movies? Oh! So it's science that's commercialized and heavily censored by China. Got it. Collins still stands by his statement.
What was being proposed there was basically saying, let's not worry about mitigation, let's just let this virus rip. And basically these, I will call them fringe epidemiologists who really did not have the credentials to be making such a grand sweeping statement, were saying just let the virus run through the population and eventually then everybody will have had it and we'll be okay. Hundreds of thousands of people would have died if we had followed that strategy. So I'm sorry, I was opposed to that. I still am, and I'm not going to apologize for it. There are times when people make crazy proposals on the basis of pseudoscience, and that needs to be called out.
Right.
I can agree with that last part. For example, healing crystals. We should absolutely call out anyone who doubts them. They cured my second cousin's coworker's mistress of her diabetes. She's been able to enjoy Fauci's cookies once again. Fauci also emailed Collins an op-ed from The Nation that criticized the idea that Americans can successfully protect the most vulnerable from the virus and reach herd immunity. Well, yeah, especially when Fauci kept moving the goalposts of when herd immunity could be reached. And Fauci's staff emailed several articles criticizing the Great Barrington Declaration. Why are Fauci and his staff so focused on stopping scientific debate about how to handle COVID? I'll get to that after the break. Welcome back. The latest Fauci emails show just how interconnected the media and public health officials are. According to the Wall Street Journal, the emails suggest a feedback loop. The media cited Dr. Fauci as an unquestionable authority, and Dr. Fauci got his talking points from the media. That would be like if I said I was the most handsome man in the world, and my main source to back this up was news journalist Chris Chappell. That'd be ridiculous. Mainly because I don't need a source to back it up. You all have eyes. Dr. Scott Atlas, a member of President Donald Trump's coronavirus task force who was opposed to lockdowns, claims that Fauci often relies on aides to curate lists of sources in advance of his many media appearances. He seldom reads the scientific literature on COVID-19 himself, and instead arrives at meetings with staff-prepared talking points. Atlas also claimed that many public health officials aren't relying on science as much as they should.
I was the only one who ever came in with any scientific papers. The other doctors never cited a scientific paper. They never critiqued a scientific paper. They never refuted any of the data that I showed. The only refutation by them was silence and then calling me an outlier.
Mean girls can be so cruel. If true, this is creating a dangerous bureaucratic echo chamber that's not helping science. The scientific process should allow free exchange of all kinds of ideas that test each other. It should even allow debate for things that aren't mainstream. Some of the ideas might be wrong, but some might be, in fact, better than what the majority agrees on. I mean, there used to be a consensus among scientists that the sun revolved around the Earth, until Galileo challenged the status quo. Top scientific thinkers once called flying machines impossible, until two bicycle repairmen proved them wrong. And scientists once believed that transferring fat from your hips to your lips would make someone look ridiculous, until, okay, they were right about that. My point is, questioning the existing thinking is how we make progress. And when government officials attempt to quash dissenting voices instead of engaging in discussion, it weakens public trust. And public trust is essential to combating a pandemic. Because no man knows all the facts. No man knows the all-encompassing truth. No man knows what the future will bring. Obviously, except me. Except that one time about K-pop. So what do you think? Is Fauci being influenced more by politics than science? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, please know we could not do it without direct support from viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered and contribute $1 or more per episode to help us keep the show going. So click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.